the book launch and discussion of The Inspired Leader 7 Practices to Unlock Your Leadership Potential by Anil Sachdev. Leadership is often described as the ability to inspire action. But truly, remarkable leaders do something even more profound. They inspire people to discover the best within themselves. Tonight, we gather to celebrate a book that explores precisely that journey. Once again, I welcome all distinguished leaders, academicians, industry stalwarts, esteemed guests whose contributions have shaped organizations, institutions, and society at large. Thank you all for joining us and what promises to be an enriching, thought provoking evening. I now request Dinanath Kholkar, Director of Pune International Center, to please give the welcome address.
Thank you, Rajlakshmi, and thank you, Geeta, for making this wonderful arrangement here, because we were having an international workshop happening and we didn't have space. Our regular spaces were all booked. So we came up with an innovative idea of converting the convention hall into this nice little hall. So thank you, Geeta. First of all, welcome to all of you. How many of you first time to PIC? Can raise your hands. Wow, that's a good number. We are about 50% newcomers. So I just want to give a view of what PIC does so that you guys have a feel of what this organization is, and would love to take you around after the event gets done. We are a well-known think tank and probably the best kept secret of Pune and Maharashtra. But the work that we are doing has had tremendous amount of impact. We've been involved with a lot of policy advocacy, policy formulation, a lot of research work that gets done. There are 6 areas that we focus on and have been doing commendable work over the last decade and a half. PIC completes 15 years this year. We work in the area of social innovation, which is one of our first areas where we help a lot of social innovators with a set of mentors who are our members, and we help them through the entire journey. We've helped close to over 250 odd social enterprises over the years. And we have a social innovation hub co-working space in our campus. The second area we work on is geopolitics and geoeconomics. And one of the most important event that we organize as part of this research area is the Asia Economic Dialogue, which we hold every year for the Ministry of External Affairs. This is their geoeconomics conference, annual conference that we host here. The third area is our Center for National Security Studies. So largely we work with the defense forces, but we also have expanded and made it much more broader as a theme. We look at cyber security, we look at cognitive security, we look at energy security and various other things which are making India self-reliant in our journey. The fourth area is Center for Sustainable Energy and Mobility. We work on sustainability, started working on a very broad theme. We created a roadmap for Pune to become carbon neutral, but then we decided to focus and narrow down our focus onto sustainable energy and mobility as an area. And we've been working on the EV policy for Maharashtra government, currently working on enabling the entire hydrogen usage in mobility. And in fact, one of the key themes of the workshop that is happening in the campus is on energy, and especially our head of the research area is actually driving that effort. The fifth area is, we call it as cooperative federalism and multi-level governance, a rather complex name, but that's how our governance is of our country. So largely focused on governance in and around urbanization as a theme, but a lot of efforts have been going on into various policies for the government of Maharashtra, and also covering some of the things related to the rural economy and other things. One of the areas that we have been focusing on and at an overall level has been the blueprint for the Pune economic region. So Niti Aayog and government of Maharashtra has chosen Pune International Center as the knowledge partner for coming up with a blueprint for the Pune region. And we have focused on the entire Pune district for coming up with the roadmap. We're working very closely with McKinsey and with ISEG to deliver this report. It's come out quite well with a lot of participation. We have got about 200 odd participations from industry, from government bodies, various industry bodies as well, to contribute towards it. And finally, the area of art and culture is very much integral to this campus, especially since we had this campus launched last year on 26th of January. We've had various events on art and culture, and we definitely see this as a very strong cultural hub for the city. So a lot of activities happening over here. But our focus remains on policy research, and that's where we seek help of many of our members. We have about 600 members, life members, individual ones, and then we have 80 odd institutional members, about 12 corporate members, and we draw upon their expertise in our journey. So this is all a quick summary of the Pune International Center. This campus is still under construction. We have completed about 2/3 of it, still some journey to go. We are looking at setting up a nice ecology showcase right on the west side of our campus and few other things. So hopefully when people come and visit, they will have lot many things to do out here. So again, welcome to all of you, and especially those who have been here for the first time. Look forward to having you more often. So thank you.
Thank you, sir, for taking us on a journey through PIC and its new campus. To commence the evening, I would like to invite our distinguished dignitaries on the stage for the official launch of the Inspired Leader. I request Dr. Raghunath Mashekar, General Manoj Pandey, Mr. Ashish Bhandari, Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, Dinanath Kholkar, Dr. Ajit Ranade, Mr. Pradeep Bhargava also on the stage to please join us for the book launch. Everyone, please join me in giving a warm round of applause as we witness the unveiling of the Inspired Leader. I think the applause should not stop. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah. I request all the panelists to be seated on the stage as we move ahead with our program.
Come, Ashish. Come. Yeah. Missing one.
Missing one chair. My chair is this.
Yeah.
No, I'm not on the pan. Then you sit down or let him start.
He's the one who has to first.
Yeah. After you speak, you will.
I'll sit here. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all. And as every book begins with a question, an insight, or an experience that refuses to remain confined to a single individual. The author of Inspired Leader, Anil Sachdev, has been a pioneer in transforming education and leadership development in India. He is founder and chairman of School of Inspired Leadership, founder and CEO of Grow Talent, and former CEO of Iker Consultancy Services and Right Management, a respected thought leader, mentor, and a visionary. I now invite him to share his thoughts and set the context for today's evening. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadguru Brahma Vidvaram. My prayers to my spiritual teacher, Swami Chinmayananda. Every moment in his presence was special. You felt moved and inspired. And that is the reason why I, a simple citizen of this country, son of an army officer, born in Khadki, raised in Dehu Road, and my elder sister Poonam Didi, my elder brother Rakesh, my younger brother Sunil, my nieces, my whole family and friends are here. A simple student from a simple school dares to think differently. And all thanks to parents, family, and an amazing spiritual teacher, and amazing colleagues to work with. I'm so happy that I have colleagues from Tata's in the rooms, Aisha in the room, Aisha Consulting, Grow Talent, and now Soil, and some of my alumni from Soil are here. So this book has happened because of all these amazing people in my lives and large companies that trusted the simple vision that we made for ourselves. When we were young, we dreamt and said, in our lifetime, we want to see this country becoming a strong economic power, but based on good human values. So we created a vision called India's economic development without spiritual impoverishment. And because the cause was worthy, people came around to support us. And this book is therefore a tribute to all those people who did this amazing work. The book begins by saying, what is a story you tell yourself when you are alone about yourself? मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर बात करते हैं. मैं और मेरी तन्हाई अक्सर बात करते हैं. What's it you tell yourself? You ask somebody, how are you? And the person says, जी रहे हैं. And other person who says, I am on top of the world. It's all a choice of words. You may face crisis in your life, problems, but if the words you use are that I learned something out of it, that's what truly matters. Language can imprison you or it could empower you. That's the first chapter of my book. After in the introduction says there are two lies about leadership. One, leadership is all about people who are born in a context. That's not true. It's what you do with the context that is given to you is what leadership is about. Second, the biggest lie on leadership, which Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda taught us, that leadership is about leading others. I am sorry, no one leads anyone. You only lead yourself. You lead your body, you lead your breath, you lead your emotions, you lead the way you think, you lead through purpose, and finally you are led by that life-giving force inside you, to which you surrender. So from this two big lies to the first chapter, I move to then the second chapter to say, why are you born and who are you? Each time we do our happiest work in life, we discover our gifts. So from your happiest work, discover what is your uniqueness with which you have come to this planet. Then I move to say, you have been given gifts, but what is the way you are going to learn? I describe 3 dimensions of learning. When you learn from the past, we call it introspection. When you learn from the present, it's contemplation. When you learn from the unborn future, it's a childlike curiosity. And then I say, let's go to the dimension of thinking. And I say, thinking is with the whole mind. The analytical mind is overly rated. The logic, the reason is important, but the intuitive and the creative is even more important. So how do you think with the power of the whole mind? Then I move to say, how do you build trusting relationships? Gurudev taught us that empathy is not just about being in someone else's shoes. First, you have to learn to get out of your own shoes. So feel empathy, do something about it. And when you are authentic, you build trust. So from trusting relationships, then I move to the section saying action. See, all of us have great thoughts, but from knowing to doing are 2 different matters. How do you source the stamina, the energy every day to stay the course? When you have picked up a cause, how do you stay the course? Make sure it happens. And finally, I say, all this is inspired by a larger understanding of who you are, what your values are, what you deeply care for, and the cause you stand for. The cause makes you a leader. Our teacher taught us that the world's best leaders are the world's best followers. If you have a cause that you follow, leadership will happen to you. And so the very last thing is, how do you use that? Spend time with your inner self. Awaken the inner witness, what we call Sakshi. The mind will prevent us to change, but the Sakshi Bhav will reveal to us the limitations of the mind that we can lead differently. And so that's the whole process of personal transformation by awakening the inner witness. That's all I wanted to say about my book. But I'm so pleased that Dr. Mashelkar is here. I will never forget the flight that you and I traveled from Delhi to Bangalore, and you told me the story of your life. I was deeply touched by your story, and I write in my book about you. So, sir, thank you very much for honoring this space. Thank you for being the leader that you are. And may I now request you to kindly tell us as to how the beginning of your childhood and what amazing things happened over the next few minutes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Distinguished Dayas, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those very kind words, Anil. I don't know where to begin. Maybe since we are talking about leadership, and particularly the inspired leader, I would talk about my own experience of leading an institution and then set of institutions, not only in India, but a conglomerate of institutions around the world. I remember joining National Chemical Laboratory right up here under very unusual circumstances. I was teaching in UK. I was a university lecturer. And I remember Dr. Naiduma, who was then the Director General of CSIR, was sent by Mrs. Gandhi because she was bothered by the fact that good scientists will come and the bureaucracy in India will ensure that they go back. And, Professor Khorana came, he didn't get a job, went back and got a Nobel Prize. You know that. So there was a big discussion and all that. So she said that just go, spot the best and the brightest, offer them jobs on the spot. All right? No bureaucracy. So somehow my name was listed. I was in my early 30s. And I got a telex from Dr. B.D. Tirak, who was then the director of NCL, saying that go and meet Dr. Naiduma in Savoy Hotel on such and such day and such time. He didn't say why. But he was my guru and you listen to guru. So I went. And it was about a 45-minute, 50-minute conversation. I told him what I'm doing and so on. And he offered me job on the spot. I love Pune because he said in CSIR you can go anywhere. There are 40 labs. I said no. If it is Pune, I will come. And I think from here, not from here. So I said yes, and I came on a princely salary of 2,100 rupees per month at that time. I still remember. Things were extraordinarily difficult at that time. And that is how I joined NCL, by the way. Now, about leadership, the first lesson that I always give to the students is aspirations are your possibilities. Keep them high. You know, young Gukesh at the age of 8 said, I will become world's youngest chess champion. And he did. So I remember the day I took over NCL, National Chemical Laboratory, 1st June 1989. I remember addressing all the 1,100 people. Broke all the safety rules because the auditorium capacity is 540. And there were 1,100 people, sitting all over. And I was a bit tired. 1989 is 2 years before liberalization, opening up. And all that we were doing was import substitution, copying, reverse engineering. And any time we did something which was ahead of the rest of the world, Indian industry would ask us, but have they done it? Has Japan done it? Has US done it? Has Europe done it? If they are not, how can you? There was no confidence. So I said, National Chemical Laboratory, what am I selling? Knowledge. You go to the fundamentals. What is my market? The whole world. So I said, National Chemical Laboratory will be International Chemical Laboratory. The very first speech, it is there on the website. What did one mean? That we license our technology even to the best in the world. And that was madness. That was audacity. Why? Because in 39 years of our existence, we did not have a single US patent. And here I was saying I will license my US patents to the best in the world. Why did I do that? I had the confidence in the talent that was sitting in front of me. Fantastic people, Paul Ratnaswamy, Sivaram, etc., etc. Amazing people. And I remember at the end, young fellow came because I had mentioned General Electric, by the way, because I'm a polymer person and they had got some fantastic breakthrough. I said, we should be able to license our technology even to General Electric. So he said, sir, do you know the R&D budget of General Electric is 2.5 times India's R&D budget. And I remember saying it is not the power of budget that matters, it is the power of idea that matters. And since you talked about G, we'll take on G. And believe me, this was 1989. In 1992, 3 of our US patents on polycarbonate, solid state polycondensation of polycarbonate, we licensed to General Electric for $1 million, 3 of them. And they were leaders. So the same people, I think the first thing about leadership is making them realize their potential. The same people who are doing copying, reverse engineering, were able to beat the best in the world. So it's all up here, so as to say. That's the first part, NCL. The second one is CSIR. CSIR is Council of Scientific Industrial Research. Just as you have National Chemical Laboratory, there is a National Physical Laboratory, National Aeronautical Laboratory. There are 40 laboratories, right? Now, the big challenge there was that the 2 laboratories would not talk to each other, as though they were individual kingdoms and so on and so forth. But in my childhood, and that was the story I had mentioned to you, I had learned one lesson. And that lesson came in a very interesting way. I was born, as is well known now, in a very poor family. My father died when I was 6 and my mother brought me to Mumbai. 2 meals a day was a challenge, and I remember studying under street lights and one Tata scholarship when I stood 11th in the SSC board among 135,000 students made all the difference. But I remember going to municipal school, and when I was in the 7th standard, I had to go to 8th standard, secondary school. So my mother required 21 rupees because I was barefoot. So we have to wear shoes. We require uniform and other fees. And it took her 21 days to get that money. And she got it from a housemaid who was working in Chowpatty. I think that is probably the story I told you. But what happened in that was I got a lucky break. The lucky break was that the admissions in all top schools were closed. Aryan, Wilson, Chikitsak and all that. And I went to a poor school. But that poor school had rich teachers. All right. And one of them was Principal Bhave. He did not believe in chalk and talk. He wanted us to see things and learn. Soap making, for example, they normally demonstrate in a lab. No, he took us to Sivri factory of Hindustan Lever. That was my first tram travel. I remember, and so on and so forth. So one day he took us out into the sun. He had a convex lens in his hand. He had a piece of paper. He moved it up and down. and there was a brighter spot. And when the brightest spot came, he said, this is the focal length. He held it for some time and the paper burnt. And when the paper burned, for some reason, Anil, he turned to me and he said, like that, if you focus, you can achieve anything in the world. All right? That was the time that inspired leadership. That inspired me to get into science. I said, science is so powerful. I must become scientist. But later on, when I grew, I saw more lessons in that. What was that? If you look at convex lens, sun's rays are parallel. And what is the property of parallel lines? They never meet. What does convex lens do? It makes them meet. All right? That was a big leadership lesson. I called it convex lens leadership. So when I took over National Chemical Laboratory, there was inorganic chemistry division, organic chemistry division, polymer chemistry division, biochemistry division. They're all divided. I said, no, one NCL. I changed the entire pattern even of funding and so on and so forth. So when I went to CSIR, same thing, 40 labs not talking to each other, etc., etc. I remember within the first year itself, Anil, I visited Kashmir to Kanyakumari, all 40 laboratories, basically. And believe me, the transformation was incredible. That transformation has been recognized, by the way, the CSIR transformation. Jayan Narlikar's book, Scientific Age, lists the top 10 achievements of Indian science and technology in the 20th century, starting with Raman, Ramanujan, and so on. And the 10th is CSIR transformation. Not only that, most unexpectedly, I got J.R.D. Tata Corporate Leadership Award in 1998. I think the only scientist to have got it for that act. So what was the magic? The magic was bringing the power of all those laboratories sort of together. And 11 May 1998 was a very historical day, I would say, because on that day, the 40 directors met. Actually, on that day, there are 3 technology incidents took place, if you remember. One was of a small aircraft. Second was missile in the afternoon. And third was Pokhran 2. And that is how it was called Technology Day later on. We persuaded our Prime Minister to call it a Technology Day. But the most important part was the Bangalore Declaration. All 40 directors had signed and said that India matters to us. We want to matter to India more. And all had signed, as a matter of fact. This is the alignment. So I think the second part of the leadership is really getting them sort of these together. I think the nation needs convex lens leadership, race, religion, caste. Why caste? Subcaste. We are all divided. The challenge is concave lens leadership. What does concave lens do? It dives people far apart. How do we bring that convex lens leadership? So I think among all the lessons that I've learned in my life, I would say convex lens leadership is probably what is the most important, finally. So thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this support.
Ranjan, my dear friend, over to you now. Yes.
Thank you very much. And Anil, congratulations on the book. It's been a pleasure to know you and work with you. And you've given me actually the easy task. I have a very respected military leader with me. I have a very respected corporate leader with me. And I get to ask the questions, occasionally interject. Sometimes if you feel at an academic leader's perspective, you can come in, I can come in. Also, we will keep this as a conversation. So feel free not only to answer the question that is asked, throw some questions back. Occasionally we'll challenge Anil. So we'll try to keep it as a lively conversation. Roughly we are at, in terms of time?
6 o'clock.
It's 6 o'clock, so we have 1 hour?
One.
We have 1 hour. So we will go in conversation for roughly around 35 minutes. Where is my friend Geeta? Geeta. So Geeta, at 35 minutes, you have to just give me a warning and we let the audience in. You give me the warning at 35. We let the audience in for around 20 minutes of questioning. Last words from the participants and we'll summarize. We'll try to close at 7 o'clock sharp. So let me start by picking up one of the themes that Anil talks about, because I think the audience may know of you by resume or reputation, but may not know of you by personal story. And he talks about the stories we tell ourselves. So, General, may I start with you? If you could talk about some of the formative incidents in your life that have shaped you as a leader, as well as some of your early role models, that might be a good place to start. And then, Ashish, we'll go with the same question.
So let me, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to be here and making a conversation on a topic, subject, which to a military man or to a soldier is extremely, extremely important. And I've always been saying this, somebody asked me, so when you became the army chief, your responsibility would have grown manifold. I said, no. In the army, right from a section commander, when you're leading 10 soldiers, or a platoon commander where you're leading 30 soldiers, or company 100, battalion, whatever, I said the responsibility is the same. So it is not as if a section commander has less responsibility or an army chief has more responsibility. It is only the sort of job content. So what I was trying to tell somebody is that, look, each one's job in that run is as important. So that was my first. Second, let me also admit, when you mentioned or when you spoke about the spiritual, the philosophical aspects of leadership, now that is something I'm not very, it's alien to me. So I'll keep my responses to the nuts and bolts aspects of soldiering. I hope that is okay.
Absolutely.
So purely give it from a soldier's perspective without trying to.
And we can all only speak from our personal experience. So I think,
so you'll have to bear with me. And of course, I don't have a story to tell like Dr. Mashelkar had, but maybe so very briefly, I came from a sort of purely non-military background. Didn't study in a military school or a public school or a Sainik school. So I studied in normal, good old days was central school. These days they call them Kendriya Vidyalayas. So that was the sort of background. So purely a non-military background. So people ask me, so why did you join the military? So what motivated you? So my response, and that was a fact. So I went to a school which was an Air Force station. So you had all these wards of Air Force children. They would come to school. They'll say, okay, after school, I'll go and play this game, that game. I thought that was very interesting. So you did something more than your studies and academics. So to be honest, that was my motivation to join the military. Of course, then I joined the National Defense Academy way back in 79. On commissioning, then I joined the Corps of Engineers, which some of you would know is not the mainstream, in the military. So Corps of Engineers is a supporting arm. So at some stage, in the engineers and the artillery, they ask you whether you would want to join the mainstream. A lot of people would say no, because your comfort zone is here. People know you, people know about you, what you've done within your own vertical. So I said, let me give it a try. So I jumped into the deep end in a way, and you were actually swimming against the tide. But I think what I was fortunate was to have, got a level playing field at each stage, wherein, in spite of, all the handicaps, perhaps they picked on whatever they found something good, some merit in me, and that's how. So it just goes on to show as to how in the military, so any of these things really do not matter, which is at times the perception outside. So that is how, that has how the journey been. And in this journey, it has been extremely satisfying, very fulfilling. Got to meet a lot of people, make new friends, relationships in the military do not remain confined to your tenure. And I'll speak of it maybe during the conversation later. So these are lifelong relationships. So to me, the military is as much a family as your blood relation.
Hmm.
So that has been something, another unique feature of, military life. Maybe leadership lessons as we go along, things might unfold, but this was in brief as to what.
Fascinating. So I think
So each time you got a new job responsibility, you try to do it to the best of your ability. And to be honest, I didn't have any sort of great ambition that I must be there, or probably like what Professor Mashelkar, you mentioned that you wanted to do this. So I really didn't have, but yes, for sure, whatever level, whatever responsibility you got, you try to do it to the best of your ability. So I'll stop here.
so. Thank you very much. I think there's a lot there. There's breadth of interest. Is going beyond your comfort zone, and I also saw that there is this deep underlying humility, right, in terms of all that you've achieved and the way you're kind of talking about it. Ashish, you want to talk about your own journey and some formative influences?
All right, thank you. And first thing I would say is, look, there are a lot of people out here who are perhaps a lot better positioned to talk about leadership, and it's not the best advice to start by kind of putting yourself down a bit, but I'll do that because I genuinely feel there are many, many people out here who I think are a lot better at talking about leadership, including General Pandey, Dr. Mashelkar, all of you. So I'll speak my story, and I'll talk about at least my leadership experience as three parts, and they align, Anil, with what you have said. So getting into IIT, and I've got Amit here, I was what would be considered as a lukha at IIT. I had no interest in leadership. And in many ways, I don't think I still have much interest in leadership, except for a couple of things that change. I'm just as happy leading as I'm following. The only leadership role that I had was canteen secretary, and that was just to get free milkshakes if that was possible. And life could have gone in many different directions, but got a chance to work with Shlambaji. They said it's the best job after IIT. And with the grades that I had, I wasn't going to get into any good US university. So Shlambaji karte. That led to a few different things, McKinsey, startup, bit of failures here and there. And my tryst with leadership in some ways started with GE and General Electric, where I spent 15 years. But it started first with, after getting knocked around a bit, getting a sense that you have an idea or something to share which is different from what you're seeing around you. At least that's my journey, and I'm very clear it's different for different people. That you have something to share or do which is different from. So that idea, that light bulb that goes out that says, yeah, aise ho raha hai, maybe we can do something differently. And that for me was during the 2007 crash, where in the US, everything had shut down. There were a lot of businesses going through very difficult time. And my business at GE did extremely well because we did a few things that were unique and otherwise. But even getting to that point, there were many, many things that led, which if I get an opportunity, I'll speak about. Right after that, you realize, and especially if you're someone as lazy as I am, you can't do this yourself. So you actually need to get other people excited about this to go out and do this with you. So you realize the jump from being yourself to the jump around, you need to take other people along with you. And that is a big shift. And for me, that was materially different because I had to train myself to do that. It wasn't something that came naturally. The third jump that came, which I got the opportunity when I came to India, was that there are stories that are much bigger than you. And when you are able to shift, that it wasn't that you needed the team to to do something. It was actually about the team itself and what you can do as a group. That third shift is the biggest shift. And that happens when you think the world has given you a lot more than what you deserved in a way. And when that light bulb goes in, that you were quite fortunate, quite lucky. And then when you think you have an opportunity to do something more than yourself, um, I think you talked about it, that power is extremely powerful. So when you start and I don't think I talk about it as servant leadership. I don't think I agree with the word entirely that it's about servant leadership. And certainly I think I still have an ego, so I wouldn't go about it. I still have unique opinions, I have curiosity. I want to do things differently. But the idea that there are bigger things than you, and it's that team that makes it happen. And in fact, your success is the team success and vice versa. When that flip happens, then I think a lot of leadership becomes much, much easier. Then you get a power which is pulling you. It gives you energy. It gives you drive to go out and do something day in and day out.
Thank you very much, Ashish. So, very insightful. I think you talked about gratitude. You also, while you stayed away from servant leadership, I think you're talking about being a part of something that is larger than yourself. And once that cause kind of comes in, you had a third theme, which I personally, I cannot resist the temptation to share a story. One is you talked about accidents and the role that accidents play. I must say one thing here, the word Lukka in IIT Bombay, for those uninitiated, is a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor that says, here is a person who's interested in everything except academics. And you will find that there are multiple Lukas who are in CEO positions at many, many companies across. And, so the track record of Lukas in IIT Bombay is, I think, fairly good. I just want to share a small anecdote on accidents. I too went to IIT Bombay, different horizon. Ajit also went to IIT Bombay. How did we decide to do engineering at that point in time? At that point in time, if you had good marks in maths and science, you had all of two options open to you. They were called engineering and medicine. And I went for a quiz to GS Medical along with a friend of mine. Both of us finally went to IIT Bombay. And we said, let's figure out what a medical college is about. So we walked inside the medical college. And inside a medical college, there is a hospital. And every hospital has a smell. It is the smell of anesthetic. So on the supremely scientific basis that we did not like the smell of anesthetic, we became engineers. So, so accidents are things that, and you don't know whether there is a larger purpose driving these accidents or whether they happen at a point in time. I want to use this to transition, and all of you have talked a bit about people and developing people. The leaders are made, not born, which is what he's saying when he says myth. Any thoughts on, and General, we'll start with you because I think the army does a remarkable job of what do you look for in a potential leader? How do you identify and develop leaders? So if you're talking about leaders, there is an element of the making of a leader. What goes into the making of a leader in the army? And Ashish, we can look at the corporate. Yeah.
So let me start by putting at rest my views in terms of whether leaders are born or made. I mean, I entirely go with the latter proposition that leaders are made. And some of you would know, Sam Manekshaw, the Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. I think in one of the conversations, he was asked the same question whether leaders are born or made, and he said, "Look, I don't know whether they are born or made." But I know one thing for sure, that if you give me a person with common sense and decency, I can make a good leader out of him. So that was his understanding of, and I think that falls nicely with what army does. When young boys, girls join the military, they're not leaders. They are average kids, with basic common sense, may not be the brightest, but they turn out to be amazing leaders. And that is to the credit of the system that we follow in the army. What he mentioned in terms of identifying. So you need to meet certain basic requirements of soldiering. And then as you step up, there are certain other leadership qualities that you look for in an individual. You identify potential candidates, you pick them up, groom them. And unlike in corporate world where you pick up leaders from outside, right? That's what you do if you have a, whereas ours is entirely an internal system. So we develop leaders from inside. So this argument about whether leaders are born, again, so certain qualities in terms of maybe personality, intelligence, resilience, so that gets impacted by the stock that you come from. But I feel the environment matters a great deal. You have to master some issues, certain qualities, especially of, character, knowledge, and action. I think these are the three key things. And maybe later on, I will talk of what a good leader must have in the military. And I put it across as 4 C's. One is character, second is competence, third is commitment, and fourth is conduct. And maybe I can elaborate on each one of them. So this is one part. So what do you look for when you pick up as youth to join the military? There's a long list, and this because over a period of time it is so ingrained in my mind or each soldier's mind. So if you ask somebody, so what do you look for in a leader? He'll rattle out those. Right? So then we say appearance, you say it is bearing, you say it is courage, then you say it is dependability, you say it is decisiveness, endurance, then initiative, judgment, and likewise. So these are some of the qualities which you would want to look at when you pick up a person. But as you grow up, then there are other pillars or foundation of leadership, which, if you may, are also the values that the army stands for. And these are as follows. First is loyalty. Second is discipline. Third is respect for others. Fourth is selflessness. Fifth is honesty. Sixth is integrity. And last, seventh is personal courage. Now, these this is, the army's sort of leadership model, if you like, competency framework. So what leaders are, what they must do, and what they must sort of act, and what they must know. And the academics and professional who talk of leadership would know this formulation. So this is what the army looks at, and this is how you pick up, groom your leaders. Not only groom your leaders, you give them right exposure to different sort of verticals within the military. You groom them, send them to different terrain types, different environment. So we have a very structured model for grooming and making leaders, if you like. So that's my brief comment on this issue of.
Thank you. What I found remarkable there is that you had 4 C's and a list of 7. He needed to refer to nothing. It was kind of so internal. Ashish, you want to pick that up and talk about what you look for?
No, I think there's no one formula as I go, especially now as I look at people. My consulting teaches you speak everything in 3s, so we don't have 4s and 7s. But if I had to think first, in no particular order, if anything, some of the others, depending on the circumstance and the individual, each one may be more important than the other. But back to using an IIT term, first is kida or curiosity. Yeah, the person should have some inherent curiosity that says, I see something different in a picture that I've done. It could be anything at all. So you're looking for that little bit of uneasiness or full of ideas in a person like that. Yeah, the second is somebody who has gone through tough times. Yes, generally gone through a career, and especially looking for stages where things got difficult, the person chose to persevere and not run away. Yeah, and it shows up as loyalty in some cases, even personal stories of working through hardships, things like that. It's not always visible in resumes. That is where the interaction and the things that you go through come up, and you see that in time and time again. Yeah, because there are stories that are beyond the degrees, beyond the universities that we all have gone through. Those are individual stories which come up, and we all know the universities you end up going is a function of many, many things. Yeah, and one of them being the upbringing and the opportunity you got. Certainly, if you're taking JEE, it's luck is involved. You're one of many, many that are taking that, and luck has got a factor in many things. And so that is not a factor by itself. And third is some sense of just what got talked about. Um, a personal honesty, integrity, somebody that has got gravitas a little bit, which is very different from curiosity. You can be both. Yeah, you can be, and especially for leadership roles, you look for that. So some combination, it changes from person to person. There's no one fixed formula, but I look for something around these three metrics.
So we've talked about curiosity, we've talked about resilience, we've talked about some sense of honesty and integrity. There is a very interesting lens from some of the old academics that I've met, because now in academia, you apply for leadership positions. I believe up to 20 years back in academia, there was this thing that you select people, you select the leader, you don't ask them to apply, because often the best people in academic leadership are people who don't want the job. But once they are given the job, they want to do the work. So the difference between position and the desire to contribute in the position, I think is a kind of very interesting lens on leadership. So we've talked a lot about some of the qualities. I think curiosity is something that Anil talks a lot about, and I'll come back to curiosity. Maybe I'll just do two more questions. But I think one theme that seems to come through is this idea of values and a sense of deep purpose. And generally, the army is probably a benchmark in terms of the depth of purpose and alignment around purpose. And possibly still, from whatever I know, it is one of the most inclusive organizations in the country. So both purpose and inclusion, if you could comment on how do you do it?
So purpose and values, I think, are extremely, extremely critical. Perhaps if you list out things, what an organization must have or what an organization requires, I think these two are critical. Because, and I'll now talk from a military perspective, and perhaps you'll be able to relate it elsewhere in the corporate world, in other spheres of life. There comes a point where maybe in a battlefield you run out of ammunition, you are totally exhausted, right? You have no energy left, no food left, no rations left. So that there's a tipping point. Now, what is it at that stage? What drives you at that stage is the key. Now, that magic sort of notion or that magic is, I feel, purpose and values. So let me talk of purpose. So in the army, we say that our ethos is based on the edifice of three things: Naam, Namak, Nishan. Very, very important. Now, these are again very deeply ingrained into each soldier. So Naam is about the reputation, your own reputation, your family's reputation, reputation of your unit to which you belong. Namak is, of course, the loyalty, the fidelity. Of course, this may be a concept from the British days, but it still holds true. And Nishan is again the pride for the flag or the ensign or whatever, maybe your logo of your company that you belong to. Now, these three things is something which drives a soldier. Along with this, so for each of this, so we have battle cries. So when a soldier or a group of soldiers So when everything else is gone or exhausted, I think it is this, battle cry, which, or the purpose, which pushes the soldier over the hill or to do something, where everything else is lost. So that is the purpose. Then there is this values which I defined, and this concept of service before self is another thing that is, enduring hardships, always putting your own comfort at the end. And this is again very nicely enshrined in what we call as a Chetwood motto, which is there in the Indian Military Academy. And it goes something like this, and I quote, "The safety, honor, and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the troops or the soldiers you command come next. Your own safety, ease, and comfort comes last." Now, that is the ethos wherein every time, so anything you do, you don't look as to what is in it for me. The country, then your unit or the team, soldiers, and then there are two more aspects to it. So, this is the organizational values. And if your own values are aligned to the organization values, then that is the ideal mix. It necessarily not happen always, right? So, the organization values are this here. You want each of the member or the member of or team, a team member to have the same values correctly aligned, because that will give you the maximum sort of output. And the second is identity. So often I am asked, so what is it that a nameless soldier, when he joins the military, so what is it that makes him do wonders? So when you start wearing a uniform, you don't remember a soldier as, Sipai XYZ. You know him as a military person or an army man or a cop. So what is it that he is willing to subsume his own identity and associate with something bigger? And that is this concept of what we call as a unit. So unit is what? It's a body of maybe 800 soldiers. So you join that unit on recruitment at the age of 17 till your life, you are part of it. So there's a commanding officer who's your kartadhar for life. The unit, so unit looks after you, guides you in times of good times, in bad times. If you die, the unit will look after you, adopt your family, your children for life. So this is the second idea of as to how the purpose and values drive people. So I think these two concepts, especially when you expect, leaders to lead their men or team members to death in such difficult combat situations, I think they have a lot of meaning. And amongst all the attributes, I think these two, in my personal view, are extremely, extremely critical. And that's what we try and build.
That merits a round of applause. So I think there's a lot that almost every organization can learn from that. So Ashish, you lead, I think, one of Pune's legendary value-based organizations. What do you think leaders do, if at all, to build and strengthen values in an organization?
Look, in many ways, at the heart, we're trying to do exactly what the army is trying to do, which is pay people less and ask them to do more. Which is what every CFO, no, I'm joking, because the organization is different. Here we are capitalist, and we should be okay about it. You cannot have a company that makes a lot of money and you're saying, I can't do that for the employees. I'm always amazed at what the army is able to do. I had the opportunity to listen to the ISRO chairperson speak. It's just incredible when you hear those stories on what people there are able to do. But at the heart of it, what we are looking to do in our companies is to replicate that experience. fundamentally starts with the idea that money is extremely important to each one. It's as important to a new joinee at Thermax as it is to me. It doesn't matter what your salary levels are. Money is important. But we all come out here to do something that is more than just money. How we earn money, what we do to do that, that is what building an organization at the heart is all about. And coming into Thermax, I was coming into a place which had a lot of values, tremendous history, but we were not growing for a bit. Yeah, we had almost a decade, Thermax had not grown. We were coming to say, what is it that we want to be for the future? What do we stand for? What is our reason for all of us to come to work? And this whole world of energy transition, what it meant for India, India's place in what that future was like, that became like a call to action and a drive. And around that, to structure your message, then to be able to structure teams around it, to be able to position both the what you do for a team and how you did everything, and also how you create the environment for them to work with each other to achieve that goal, both to be able to show the goal and then to create the catalysts all around in the organization to be able to achieve all of that. That then becomes the leader's role, to be able to create that environment where people feel like we are working for something that has a purpose. And I'll go to what Dr. Mashelkar was saying. We're not short of things to do. I think the India today, compared to when you came back in 1990, we're still exactly the same. Technology aata hai, our first thing is, even our biggest companies, they would rather take something that has been done at 10 places outside than to work with an Indian company to say, this is what we have achieved and this is what we can do. But the times are different. This is our time to make things happen, and we will make it happen. And I think the role of companies like Thermax in driving that future is something that I believe in. And Ravi Pandit was a big, big believer in that. A lot of people in this room are big believers. And that's the force that's driving Thermax. So in that sense, to be able to connect the dots and to be able to connect an organization around this larger purpose, which is relatively institutionalized in the armed forces, yet you have to make it. Last thing I'll say, I know we're well beyond. I think for most runners, long distance runners, you know that every small bit of inspiration helps. But once you cross that 25, 30-kilometer portion, your training, your practice, there's that period where it is just you and yourself. Yeah, and you need to find that inspiration, whatever. So the training matters, giving the right tools, technologies, labs, everything else is just as important as the inspiration and whatever else you do. So the operational part of leadership, which we don't talk about here, creating that operational rigor, capabilities, systems, tools, all of that is extremely, extremely important as well, which is why I guess you get called as CEOs. So the execution portion is as important as everything else that goes out.
Thanks so much, Ashish. I think that, briefly, and then I'll tie it up and give it back.
So just to pick on what he said, I think the organization culture for any organization is extremely, extremely important. And I think each one of us, especially in the senior leadership positions, try to do that. Not only nurture the culture that already exists, but further, take it forward. It takes a long time to develop an organization culture, but it won't take very long. You just need a wrong person there, and things can get diluted. And I mean, I don't have to. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Peter Drucker, that organization culture eats strategy for breakfast. So for him, for companies to succeed, it is not only that you need a good strategy, but for him, more important or as important was to have a solid organizational culture, which actually drives any organization. So that was it.
Yeah, so I just have two things, and then Anil, maybe we comment and hand over for questions. I think one is you both talked about culture and context. Sumantra Ghoshal talks about the smell of the place. And I think a lot of the things that you're saying lead to the smell of the place. I have a small personal anecdote on values, and it influenced me a lot. In the early, I think 1990s, I was a management trainee in Asian Paints, and then I was a branch manager. And then these are the olden days where you have a go down on the first floor and a branch on the second floor, and the branch manager's cabin is right at the back. And in those days, there used to be a magazine called Business India. It's still there. It's no longer the prominent business magazine, but it's still there. And I'm sitting in my cabin, which was a glass cabin. And I open Business India and I start reading it. One of my salespeople walks in 5 minutes later and he says, "Sir, aap Business India samne se padhte ho," which means you read Business India from the front page. I said, "Yes." And he says, "Hamare pichle manager jo the, wo Business India piche se padhte the." So my previous manager used to read Business India from the last page. At that point, everybody knew that the appointments column of Business India was on the last page. So just think about this. There is a manager looking for a job, sitting in a glass cabin, taking a magazine and reading the last page. The entire office knows he's looking for a job. So the message that I took away is organizational values. The big onus on us as leaders, if there's organization has a set of values, you have the responsibility to demonstrate every day. You are being watched every day. In my work with corporations and even in my own institution, I believe this. If the top 20 people in your organization are demonstrating your values, value statement or no value statement, you will have a value-based organization. So having that demonstration on a day-to-day basis, I think becomes very critical. So Anil, all over to you, and then we'll open up for questions.
I was just very moved to share a story about the company Aisha, where we worked, and we have Rakesh and Ramesh working there. So soon after I joined Aisha, I was in the corporate HR function. So the labor unions at Faridabad, they called for a strike. But our tractors were in short supply. We decided not to close the factory down. And inspired by Aisha, our next door people, Hitkari Potteries, also decided to continue their operations. A mob of 5,000 people came to burn the factories that were working. Hitkari Potteries was set on fire. 19 people died in police firing. But our union leaders, they were internal union leaders, they picked up the lathis. They locked the gate and they told the managers, "You sit inside your offices." They protected the factory. They told the mob, "If you enter over our dead body." This is the company in which every employee, all of us thought we owned the company. It was, the shareholder was Vikram Lal, but he never treated anybody as if they were employees. Each one of us felt we owned the company. And that deep love that we felt for the organization is because the number one person in the company never behaved as if he was the owner at all. He carried his own suit, he drove his own car, and he would sit with people. And that's the culture. And we learned a lot from the army, incidentally, because thanks to my upbringing, we introduced the same culture of, teamwork and sports together and inter-sports tournaments, all kinds of interesting things. So as a result, we now have this group GAT in Aisha, where are people who are now working anywhere else in the world, but we go together for trips together because the deep love we feel for the brand, even though we no longer are employed by the company, is quite extraordinary. So I just thought, when you have the higher purpose always, and Aisha never ever bribed a single government official. We closed down 2 companies because we said we will never bribe. And because of that very strong focus on values and ethics and for the sense of community, I think it defined many of us in Aisha. And it's a biggest secret of India that over 100 CEOs in big companies all over the world groomed by Aisha, and 100 heads of HR, including global heads of HR. We talk about levers as a leadership factory. Aisha, in my opinion, is a far bigger leadership factory than any other company in the country. So I just wanted to say that because of that. Thank you.
I'd humbly just add Asian Paints to that competitive set. They also have quite a few CEOs. So we've touched on many themes. I think we've talked about purpose. We've talked about and many themes from the book. We've talked about how we groom leaders, how we select leaders. We've talked about a sense of purpose, a sense of values. At this point, we will open to the audience for questions. You can ask the question to an individual panelist, and then all the other panelists have the option of supplementing. Okay. Given my experience with moderation, I have a request. A question means less than 15 words.
Okay.
Okay. Amit and then the lady. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but Amit. Yeah.
Gopika is her name.
Gopika.
Very quick question for Ashish, since I asked a lot of questions to General Pandey 2 weeks back. I'm not going to repeat that. But Ashish, you came to Pune at a very interesting time. It was the beginning of COVID. You were in a new city. You were running a new company with all the challenges. As you said, the growth had not happened, with great culture, with great legacy. Can you talk about your leadership lessons and the inspiration in that transition? Because you had a tough 6 months, 1 year.
Actually, a lot of people asked me that question. It was for the first year, that was the most common question that was asked. And I had left Baker Hughes, which is the spun off out of GE that I was part of, in February. And my goal was to take 3 months off, travel, goes back to that lazy theme that I have, and join Thermax in May or June. And then COVID happened, and they said, all our plans are off. So you might as well, and you're doing nothing at home, so you might as well join. All your travel plans have gone to shit. So I said, ticket, I joined. And as all leaders, you read that first 90 days, meet people, look them in the eye, shake hands, do this, that. And I can't meet anybody. Yeah, so none of that happens. You're seeing people on Zoom, you're doing everything over Zoom. You are in Pune, but you're working out of home. The first time you show up at the office is once in June or July for Unni's farewell, and very infrequently until August or somewhere. And then the second wave of COVID happened and we went back. So surprisingly, and maybe fortunately, my period was very easy. I didn't have to do anything anybody had to do, but it was the power of Thermax. Yeah, I was coming the first leader from outside of Thermax. Every CEO was homegrown. Practically my entire EC was from Thermax. I knew nothing about boilers, chillers, water. I still don't. But I didn't know anything about any of that equipment. I was coming from MNC to an Indian company, knew nothing about Pune. So you would have thought everything would be a hurdle, but amazingly, very little of it was. Seriously. I went to the amazing culture that Thermax had, which was good or bad, everything was out in the open. You talked about stuff, you could say something and get away with it. Very high integrity across the leadership, and attitude which said, okay, if that's the running rule, we'll run with it. Nobody gave you a free ride, but nobody had agendas as such. Yeah, so it was easy. I had no problems settling in, and it's now 6 years, so I can't say I'm still settling in some ways, but it feels like home, and it felt like home after the first few months in the company.
Ashish, follow-up question. How important do you think it is in these kind of settings for leaders to have the ability to ask for help?
Very, very important. And I say that to every new employee also. Your first few weeks, days, months, it is actually the immigrant mentality also. You come to a new place, you are little lost, but everything in your brain is ready to be rewired. Yeah, because you're okay to have that uncertainty, and you know you are in an unfamiliar environment. So there's you feel alive also in a way. But in that period, you need help like nobody's business. Yeah, you need friends, you need people within the system who you can just go out and say dumb stuff around insurance and by the way, some of those things that are nothing to do with work help you form very strong relationships. And that is the part of culture which also is very tactical and very, very important. I think the ability to seek help is extremely important. The ability to say, I don't know something, especially initially, it's a great trait any time in life. And the number of people who will help you when you say you don't know is just unbelievably amazing. I think Steve Jobs talks about it. If you don't ask, you don't know. And those are things that didn't come to me easily. Yeah, it wasn't something that was going to the talk about leadership. Knowing was something that came. In fact, when I was right after business school at McKinsey, I thought I could do everything myself. And that change, when it comes, is a very powerful change and a very welcome change.
I also think it kind of takes security to be publicly comfortable with ignorance. So the I don't know requires actually a fairly self-confident and comfortable in skin kind of human being. And I think comfort in skin is very important. Your question, sorry, I've been holding you. Again, you can address it to anybody. We'll all come in.
Yeah, so I'd like to address it to both the general and to Mr. Bhandari, and perhaps Dr. Banerjee can give his perspective, and of course, Anil. My question is, you've spoken about purpose, values, character, caliber, all of that goes into making a good leader. I want to know how relevant it is in today's generation, the Generation Z, millennials. Do the same rules apply? The old school way of thinking, has it eroded? Do you think it has affected the way leadership looks at leadership today?
Generally, you want to go first, then Ashish. I deal with a lot of millennials, so I'm happy to come in and talk a bit. So, yeah.
Left to right, but doesn't matter. So, yeah, I think what I spoke of, the character, the values are very relevant, extremely relevant even in today's days. In fact, more relevant, more required, if I may. You know, because when I say, and maybe some of you may not agree with me, but you look at the youth today, they're looking at only what is in it for them. You know, what do they need to do for the society, for the country comes maybe, but that is acceptable or that is understandable because, you know, they're in the prime of their youth. But I think this aspect of ingraining into them about the character, the responsibilities, also something which didn't get touched upon, though he briefly alluded, the aspect of maintaining or guarding the unity and diversity in the country, tolerance for different cultures, different religions, tolerance for different viewpoints. This is something I find we are losing it. You know, the aspect of, I keep saying this, in the military, you know, we have what is called as a Sarva Dharmasthal, where, you know, in the single building, in a single room, there is a masjid, there is a temple, there is a Christian, I mean, there's a church or a Gurudwara, depending on. So this is what is required. And this is what must bind us together and not, I mean, what you see things falling apart. This is not the way to go. So I feel this talking to youth about character building, about the values, I feel is extremely important. And that is what I intend. I mean, I do it in my own little way. Very, very. So it is, in fact, more relevant than what perhaps it was with the challenges we in the society is facing today.
Thank you, Ashish. I'd like you to weigh in.
2 points. One, I'll challenge General Pandey. Shouldn't challenge a military man, but I will. I would say sit down, please. We were always screwed as humankind. Yeah. And if you go back, if we are bad today, what were we when we had partition, when we cut open half the country? What were we 100 years ago when we were fighting world wars and doing colonialism and God knows what else? So in many ways, we are getting better. Not everything is gloom and doom. Despite the wars we are fighting, we're fighting fewer wars today than ever in the history of humankind. Yeah, and the fraction that goes on is some drones going, something happening here and there. You're not talking about we were killing hundreds of thousands in wars on an annual basis for centuries. So give the youth a chance. Yet it is not all gloom and doom. The Gen Zs and the millennials and everyone, they have a very different way of working, very, very clearly. Some things require more, which means you need to inspire them even more because they're not easy to be inspired. They want to see it actually happening. They want to see what is in it for me. You're doing all of these things. And they want actually visible leadership. When you can do those things, the capability, the talent, and the ability is second to none. It's also a generation which is a lot less fearful, which is an amazing thing. Because it's when you are fearful, you can't do some things. You are refusing to take a jump because you know something will happen, medical, and you only have to. When everything says, yeah, finance teaches you risk reward is a great metric. When you come in with the attitude that you are okay to take a few risks, you are okay to strive for bigger rewards as well.
Ways of building leaders.
So the way of inspiring them has changed. The generation is clearly different, but the fundamentals haven't changed. And this is a generation that we're seeing that everywhere. That will drive miracles for India. And hopefully we are going to give them a terrible planet from a climate change perspective. That's a generation that will have to fix it because we are doing nothing. And look around. Yeah, every year we are only making the world a worse place than what we got it.
So, Gopika, I want to add to this because I live with this. I'm very optimistic about today's generation. And my answer to this would be, it is more difficult than ever to teach the things we are talking about. It is more difficult than ever to convince people about values. It is more needed than ever. So that's my first point. But my second point is, look, you look at this room and parenting has changed. I first argued with my father when I was 18 years old. It was an event. I prepared for it. So my point is that we were parented hierarchically because at that point we were middle class and education was something that was a high pressure thing because we didn't have khandani paisa. So it was like, if you don't study, you won't do well and I'm worried about your future. So there was pressure. I think largely we have parented our kids much less hierarchically. They ask us questions much earlier. They become our friends much earlier. Now, when that happens, and those people go into organizations, and if you are going to lead them the way you led our generation, it doesn't work. Because these people are saying, okay, you have a designation, you're my boss on paper. Now tell me why I should respect you. And respect has to be earned with this generation, whether you are a teacher or whether you're a leader. And if you complain about it, then you are the problem. They are not the problem. Okay? The second thing I will say, their desire for purpose is greater than ours. Their awareness of societal issues and sustainability is greater than ours. We have to have the ability to have non-hierarchical conversations. Whether we are teachers or leaders, we have to open up two-way conversation with this generation. Then they will do magic. I believe in this on a day-to-day basis. That's how we should build our universities. That's how we should build our business schools. It's ironic that academia, which is supposed to teach openness, academic institutions are the least open institutions among all the organizations that we have. Those are the things we need to change. Sorry, Anand.
I just want to say something that.
Yes, it's a plug-in for Nayanta as well, huh?
No, the plug-in for Nayanta is longer. I need another 10 minutes for that.
I just want to second what Ranjan said, but I also want to caution ourselves about the huge impact of social media on the young people. They're leading a different life. And because of this distraction economy, the world's richest companies are in the business of distraction. And what they have done to us, all human beings, is that we are disconnected from each other. And we like each other on Facebook and Instagram rather than have honest conversations. So this is something that I think is a very serious issue. And we have to, therefore, create more of circles. So in our campuses, every morning we have something called morning circle. So students come together, we join hands, we The students host the morning circle. And the way it is done is that we feel that sense of connection with each other. Till we solve the problem of connection, we are not going to really solve the problem of the young people that we are talking about. We need to be far more connected. We need to be far more fully present. In today's world, what is required is attention capital, not financial capital. And attention, the lack of attention is costing the largest amount in healthcare cost, lost productivity, lost quality. So if there is only one thing we need to all focus on is how to bring that attention. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, we've had many dialogues with him. He says the key to attention and mindfulness is compassion. So unless we ourselves demonstrate that largeness of the heart and generosity of the spirit and make love into the central force in our workplaces, I think, and that's why I'm just reminded of what Mother Teresa told us when she came to address a management conference. She only asked two questions. She was the chief guest. She said, my brothers and sisters, I don't know why you have called me. I'm not from the field of management. But since you have called me, I will only ask you two questions. Do you know your people and do you love them? And she sat down. It was the largest standing ovation ever given to any leader. So I think it's as simple as that. Do we really know our people? And when young people like that are challenging us, is because they're feeling we actually don't care. We make all these talks about leadership, but we don't live what we talk about. So if there is that authenticity, I think beautiful things will happen. That's what I would like to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Anil. I am reminded by my mobile phone, ironically, after this discussion on social media, that we are 3 minutes away from closure. So I will take one question from the gentleman there. I'm really sorry, but yeah, we have to. Yeah.
I have a unique reason for asking a question to Ashish. By the way, Anil did and many of my friends have a similar rank as yours, but they were not army chiefs. One of them was Air Force chief. Ashish, I was in Thermax for the first 15 days of my career. Rohington had interviewed me himself. I have a question for you. You said you don't have domain knowledge. You don't know the nuts and bolts of the products that you make. I worked for a similar company. Does that compromise your ability to lead? How is it viewed by people who are deeply technical and don't really take kindly to people who don't know the technical aspects of a business? You know,
It's a fair question.
I think that's a question you should ask them because I sit in my high chair and I think everything is okay.
You've been
that's
around
something
for
that you
6
should
years,
ask.
so obviously you're doing very well.
But I think the answer is that no leader in today's position can know everything and anything. Yeah, which is, it's just the reality of where we are today. And it's not just about the products. If you take, we give our good chunk of the business in terms of cybersecurity, IT capability, understanding of so much of that's going in the plumbing of our digital world to our CDO. Yeah, if that person has 80 people in the team, I have a fairly good idea that I wouldn't be able to do the job of any of those 80 people. You have an R&D department which is working on some really, really cool stuff. I can challenge them in understanding certain aspects of it, but if I had to do their job, I know I can't do any of their jobs. So if I go like this, it feels like actually the only job I can do with my own hands is my first job, Shlambaji. That if you wake me up in the middle of the night and say, go do that, that I will remember still to the what I did for that period. Practically everything after that is, but what I've learned along the journey is product development. How do you do distribution networks? How do you run plants? How do you set up services? So I have functional knowledge of many things that go into B2B environments. I understand where the world of energy is going to some extent. I have passion around driving that energy transition, what is needed. So you use those to pull things together to ask the tough questions that are important and relevant. And then with 6 years, you get smarter and smarter about your products as well. But knowing that you will never know as much as the head of product development of your boiler division knows about that individual product, which is okay. I think you can easily work in that fashion. And we work in that fashion in almost everything we do in life, especially as you get older, you know, uh, less and less about so many things, yet the everything that you have collected over 30 years of working, that helps you tremendously.
So, I think you should also give Ashish a humility discount because I think he has, he's talking about learning from people and building credibility over time. I also think you don't have to be better than your best salesman to help the best salesman become a better salesman. And I think that is the essence of understanding what it means to work with people. We are out of time. I know Dr. Marshalkar has a parting thought. So I'm going to request the panelists for one, any parting thought or anything from Anil's book that has stayed with you that, you want to take away? Because I think we should return to the book because we had a broader range.
But I think everything he talked about in the book makes a lot of sense. Also, that you just lead yourself, not anybody else. I loved Dr. Mashelkar's Be a Convex lens in everything that you do. I'll try and use it. I'll appropriate it to you, sir, correctly. But many, many things. And I think I haven't had the chance to read the book, but the blurb that I read, every bit of it appealed. Thank you.
Thank you. General, any parting thoughts?
So your second myth, when you said that you need to be a self leader or words to that effect before you lead others, I think very critical because, and somebody mentioned that you need to be leading by example, especially in my sort of business, where you've got to be twice as good. You got to be willing to put your life to risk before you ask somebody else to do it. You got to do a job better than what he can do. So this is, I think, very, very important, leading, for example, because especially in crisis situations, in combat situations, your team members will look at you. So you got to be calm, you got to be, composed, you got to be fearless. So this is very critical. But one last suggestion, if I may, next time you write a book, please include some military leader stories. Of course.
So Anil, definitely sense of purpose. The next book has already started, and Dr. Mashalkar, and then maybe I'll just try to summarize.
No, I must say that I learned so much during this session. Very, very inspiring indeed. So thank you, Anil, and thank you. Just one comment I wanted to make, inspired by what you said and others said. A few months ago, at 3 in the afternoon, I released a book called Brahmastra Unleashed. This was by Shivanandan, the former Director General of Police. And you remember that Bombay at that time was taken over by gangsters, the Chota Rajan and the rest of it, and how he eliminated them. So it was a book on leading from front. At 7 o'clock, I was the chief guest for releasing another book that was leading from the back. And that was Ravi Kant of Tata Motors. All right. And we had an interesting conversation. So leading from front, leading from back, but the leaders were visible. Then I mentioned during my comments what had happened in Nepal, the young people that you were talking about. who are the leader? Everyone was a leader and nobody was a leader. And the upheaval that was caused, finally, the Prime Minister had to go, basically. That is a new generation, empowered, so as to say. And it is all invisible, but it can happen. And therefore, there are lessons for us to learn also. When you do the NEET exam in the way that it has been done and hurt 22 lakh young people, it's not good for us. All right. So let us not take the young people for granted in India. I think that's the point, basically. Each one of them can be a leader.
I had a phone call with Dr. Mashalkar yesterday, and he told me about this leading from the front, leading from the back. And I said, you must find an occasion to mention this in the session. So I'm glad you remembered at this point in time. Let me just say, I think we've touched on a variety of themes. We've talked about purpose. We've talked about character. We've talked about teams. We've talked about humility, curiosity. And I think a large element of demonstration and the leader's inner self, therefore, because you can't practice values unless they're deeply felt, unless they're second nature. So becoming aware, continually self-improving. And I think a larger emphasis given the group and the experience that I see, that we all have a responsibility for taking some of this to the next generation of leaders. Anil, you have a target for a new book, so I hope to see you again here at PIC sometime in future. Let me just thank the entire audience and the panel. I think it's been a good, productive evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our distinguished panelists. It was indeed a very inspiring session, and I can clearly say that audience did love it a lot. It was inspiring, and it was across domains and across generations. And as a token of our appreciation, I would request Dr. Mashekar to please felicitate our guests. Sir, can we just take a group photograph? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the distinguished dignitaries. As we conclude this evening, I would like to thank our panelists